career changer. I've done previous career in engineering, in particular metallurgy, and I have a, sorry, it's a bit noisy here.
That's all right.
I've done a Master of Science in Geology as well, and now I'm retraining as a Master of Secondary Education in Maths.
Fantastic.
And yeah, I enjoy working with young people, and it's good coming home every night rather than traveling interstate for work. So that's part of the motivation for changing to teaching.
Well, one of the things you'll notice in my profile was that I was involved in manufacturing a long, long time ago. And I was an engineer and an engineering manager, and the reason that I got out of that and went to education was I've got 6 kids. So there you go. You can't have it all. Some people seem to manage large families and large careers, but I made a conscious change to stop doing that. They seem to own me. So I wanted to stop that. But thanks for that, James. I appreciate it. Cindy Rove?
Hi, I'm Cindy.
Can I put you
so
guys
yeah, I
on the
think
screen here? Can I put you guys on the screen so you can all see each other? Is that okay? Or not? You're allowed to say no. Or you can turn your video off if you want to hide.
Oh, we can see each other anyway.
Oh, can you? Oh, you've got the panel. You've got that panel.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. So you can turn your video off if you need to. Sorry, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Here again.
Yep. So, yeah, I'm in the MTeach program. So previously I did an undergrad in science, majoring in chemistry. So I did a bit of research within the chemistry field, kind of thing,
Yeah.
and yeah, kind of shifted over to education now.
Very
So,
good.
yeah.
Welcome. Very nice. And is this the last lot for you?
Yep.
Last
So I've
installment?
got one more semester though.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. It's the last math subject, I think.
Yeah, last semester.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Come on, don't make me ask you.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Trish. Yeah, I'm in the what's it called? The Maths Secondary Education. I forgot the name of that. Masters of Maths in Secondary Education.
Very good.
I was previously working in a primary school as a special ed teacher, but now I'm currently working as a maths teacher.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm doing this alongside that.
Very
So
good.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. Thank you, guys. I think it helps in the long run. So what we'll find is that as we go into math teaching, I think I've said this to a couple of you before. Anytime I offer a reflection like this and you think I'm mansplaining or just tell me to shut up, that's probably the best thing to do. Is it takes about 5 years, in my opinion, because in the second half of my career I've been a school principal and helped staff through and done all that stuff with senior maths. And I think it takes about 5 years before you can actually walk into a subject feeling as though it's part of your job, like it's your journey. So for some teachers it'll be different. There'll be, before you're completely autonomous, it might be a couple of years or so. But I think if you put pressure on yourself before at least 3 years are up, I think that's counterproductive. So just being a bit generous with yourself for the first 5 years, I feel is a good tactic. And if after 5 years you take stock and you have a look and it's feeling a bit awkward, then maybe there's some strategies and things you can do. But by that time, you generally have a sense of what the expectations are and how you're going to unpack whatever it is that you're teaching. And you will have taught quite a bit of variety, hopefully, by that time. Now, one of the things that does happen in schools, which I thought I'll mention, is that in some schools, they're very parochial about the senior math subjects. So don't take it personally if you find the head teacher takes extension and the next person takes extension and you don't get to look at extension. Don't be upset if they give you year 11 advanced and then give year 12 to someone else. There's a lot of stuff that goes on within a maths thing that can be quite confronting. So just letting that sit out there. Don't take it personally. It happens. It's not something I would do. I wouldn't do that. I would just hold hands and let's go do it. But that's me. I'm a bit of an odd fish. But some of the traditional staff members. So if you're in the public system in particular, you'll meet that. And if you're working in the private system where there's a public person who's in a leadership role, you'll meet that. If you're in the private system where they only know the private, then it's needs based, and that's the best way forward. I went into my second school was a private school, and so having had the experience of the other thing early on was good for me. And it's not about versing, it's not about one or the other. I'm speaking purely as a changing career person. They needed help with a lot of stuff, including senior maths, so that's how I got the gig. I just put my hand up and said, yeah, I'll do it. And I walked in cold, and that's how I started. So hopefully you get a mentor, hopefully there's someone that you can develop a rapport with and get the tricks of the trade, not be afraid to ask them, you know, those embarrassing type questions. Oh, how do you get that out? And yeah, all of those kinds of things. Alright, so enough of that. I'm open to always discussion if you need it. So these nights have got two parts to them. The first part is really about the development of you as a professional, which is what I just did, hopefully, in a very informal way. And so we can find in the modules that if you look at the tutorials, we've got a schedule, a place for us to come along and record. Now, I did make a recording of last week, and I'm recording this week as well, and I never leave anything in there that's controversial. I always edit it out and dub it out. And so this week will appear under this line here. These aren't here to burden you, they're just from Calculus 2. So they're purely for your interest. I'm not expecting you to study them, they're there as a resource. And if you want to have them as a resource, that's great. If not, that's great too. Okay, so I'm not bothered at all by that. Just coming to the central place means you can come here to this same link each week without worrying too much about how to navigate through. In the modules themselves, obviously you've probably had a look at the first Get Started module, so there's a lot there. I've put the subject outline on the front page, so you can pull the subject outline down to have a look. So I would recommend that you just keep that around somewhere. Where are we up to this week? But if you're not sure, you can go back to modules, and the weekly schedule is there. Now this is where these are boxes in Canvas you may have used before, and basically the idea is that you read it like a book. Now I've broken that mold somewhat by putting this tutorials module at the top, which is a bit naughty of me, because they want you to just start here at the Get Started module, start reading and basically page your way through to the end, and then come to week 1, away you go again. You start at the overview and page your way through. That's how they want you to do the whole course. But what I found was the students were getting a bit lost sometimes with the schedule and the links for the meetings, so I've maintained the same link throughout. I've just scheduled it on 12 or 13 occasions, so you don't have to go looking for different links and different numbers and things like that. So the schedule, now this is where it gets a bit naughty of me to do a right click and open in a new tab. I've repeated the subject outline in the schedule, so everything there. We'll have a little bit of a look at vectors, but not too much. Oh, actually we're here, sorry. We're having a look at improper integrals, and we're doing some of this how do we get started type information, and then we'll go on from there. So if you've got queries about what's coming up, it's all there, a reflection of the subject outline. So a couple of you have been with me before, you know that I'm not high stakes, so again my emphasis is on your development as teachers. It's not about Maths 3 in a way, Calculus 3, which is a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? But I hope you found that helpful last time, in that it's very important to me that you don't get hung over and caught up. I want it to be there as a resource that you're exposed to, but the rigour has got to come from your professional development much more than the other stuff. The must-see thing is a very important thing, I think, that's worth having a look at if you haven't already. It ties together a few ideas relating to sequences and series. If you don't get it the first reading, and only half of it, I think I've only put half of it in, there you go, put the shortened version in haven't actually put the Riemann hypothesis part in. This is like part 1, but all the pre-work for part 1. So that kind of exposes you, as I have this week, to the whole idea of analysis, the analysis part of mathematics. So the analysis side of mathematics is under the hood. It's the reason why, and that's what my colleagues, I'm not a mathematician, I'm a maths educator and a statistics educator. I don't claim to be a mathematician or a statistician, but I've got some horsepower in mathematics, so that's a fit for what I'm doing. The mathematicians are big on the analysis. So if you're interested more in dealing with analysis, certainly, and those harder things in the HSC curriculum, particularly in 4 unit, have analysis flavours to them. But beyond that, it's not something that we do over the top. And I hope I went some way last semester in Calculus 2 to help you ease into that. All right, so I don't know if you've had a read of this week 1 stuff, so that's why I haven't put up any questions this week, and I'll put them up next week. But the idea is that you don't have to have read it by the time we come on the Tuesday night. Because it's Tuesday night, I'll be doing some questions and some learning things that fit with that. So don't be worried that you have to have read each week on the Tuesday. That's not really practical, is it, given you're all working and doing other things as well. Alright, the other thing I'll draw your attention to is under people. If we go to people, I've got you into groups, and what I'm asking you to do, and I'll talk a little bit about assessments now, is I've given you a little Canvas site all of your own. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go and have a look at mine, because I've put myself in here as a dummy student. And so if I put visit, if I click on visit there, it'll take me off and show me what my area looks like. And I just might go back and see if I can't open that in a new tab, which it did. Good. So when you come here, all the things down the side here are no longer the subject things, they're yours. So you can do things in there. You can make your own announcements for yourself. The idea is that this is student groups, but I've given you a student group of 1. Okay, you can actually make your own pages up. If you want to have a HTML page, you can see who's there. You can start a discussion with yourself if you want to. I think I did all this in one of the subjects, got everybody to do something. The most important thing I'm looking at for you guys is the file section. Here you can upload any of your homework or assessments or anything you want me to see. Okay, so that's how you put that in. Now I could make it a formal submit PDF underneath the assignments, but that's sometimes problematic, and so it's just easier, I think, if you drop your file into there. So for example, if I just go and grab a file, and I'll show you how that works. So I've got the extension to zipper, and if I go and grab a file, say I'll grab the Sydney Tech folder, and there's a Sydney Tech extension to trial, and this is purely just an example. You pop it into there, and if all's well, it'll upload it and it appears in your student list. So it's a way of you getting things up onto the subject, Canvas subject. Now, as a student, I cannot go in and have a look at Cindy's bits and pieces and James's bits and pieces. However, as a staff member, that is available to me. So if I come over now, I'm logged into this web, I've changed browsers, that's how I'm doing the multiple logins. I can go to people, and if one of you would volunteer to allow me to go and have a look, and others will see your blank ones at the moment. Is one of you happy with me to go and have a look? Okay, so as a staff member, if I come here, I've got this option. Now you don't have that on here, you don't have that option, okay? But as a staff member, I've got the option to click on, say, James's, I want to have a look at James's stuff, and open in a new tab, and what that'll do for me is it'll open whatever James has been doing here. So I'm just making you aware that it's not completely private, but that's not the purpose of it. The purpose of it is that let's see what files, if any, James is submitting to me. Okay, so I can do the same there for myself, obviously. And if I go on there and have a look at myself, and if I see that I did put a file in, and then I can see that I've put that file up. Okay, so please use that. It's just an easy, intuitive way for you to drop stuff up onto Canvas so that you have confidence that I've got it. I mean, you can attach it to email. We can make it as part of the assessment that you formally drop it into a file. But for our purposes, it's probably easy just to have a little list here of things that you want me to have a look at and grade, etc. Okay, so I'll just pop that one back out of the way and close that couple of tabs there, and that's good. Alright, so that gave us people groups. So if I go back to this one. Alright, so any questions about the people groups and popping files up there? Pretty good. Just drag and drop and it should be okay. You can put the different files in, PowerPoints, Words, PDFs, you can even put movies up there. Okay, so whatever flavour you have in terms of assessment, that's what it looks like. And speaking of which, we'll have a look at that now and just discuss a little bit about what's in the subject. So obviously what I'm acutely aware of is that you're doing math methods in other subjects. So this subject can't be about math methods to the extent that it's already been covered, and that would make it redundant, which would be annoying for you as a student. So I endeavour not to do an overlap that way. So that's why I'm a little bit open about how you submit your assessments. And so where you choose to do a particular and we'll talk, mate, the weekly homework will be, I'll demonstrate that tonight in tutorials, but essentially the one that's probably annoying you the most is the micro-teaching stuff. Now, the way I want the micro-teaching to work is that there's 12.5%, so that means there's 4 of them. And even though it says here 7 to 10 minutes micro-teach, look, if you pre-record that, or if you just make a PowerPoint or a document, I'm okay with that. If you really get hungry and you want to present to everyone and show them what you've done, I'm okay with that, but you've got to let me know before we get to Tuesday night so that I can just slot you in and say, okay, Trish is going to teach us about a topic that she's had. If you don't want to do that, I'm okay with that. Alright? I'm happy for you to just load up your files onto your people files section and I will mark it off there. Okay? Now, what is it about this that we're going to be looking at? So if I were to suggest to you that we had to get you to do teaching about this Calculus 3 topic, I think you'd probably want to punch me in the face. Alright, because frankly, there's 2 sides to the course. There's the work where you have to do some homework based on concepts that we do in class, and then there's what we do for micro-teaching. And I feel that it's more valuable that your micro-teaching reflects what's happening in your professional development, that is, in your schools. So I did send you all an email. Did you get the email with the links to the extension zip files? Did anyone not get it? Okay, so I sent an email. I'll just quickly open my email. And I don't want you to see everything that's going on my email, but I'll just put this down here. Calculus 3. So I sent an email called Micro Teach Resource. Did you all get that?
Yep, I got it.
So the link there was off our Study Centre website, which allows you to download those files as zip files. And
Yeah.
Yep, you got that okay?
I don't think I got, I'm just looking, I don't know if I missed it. I don't think I, when did you send it? Do you know what date it was? Recent, it was today?
No, it was back on the 7th, the 26th of the 7th, so it was last week.
Yeah, I don't think I got, I'm just having a look and seeing. Yeah, I don't think I got it.
You're in the list.
Yeah, okay, I might have a check and see.
That's all
What's
right.
happened?
I can resend it to you.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll do that. Forward. There you go.
Great, thank you.
There you go. And go. Okay, hopefully that comes through at some point. All right, so that's your resources for all of the microteach, of which we're looking for 4. Now, if you want to do more, of course, I don't know why you would, but if you want to do more, you can. All right, so what's the intention there? Well, the intention there is that you download this file to your desktop. So I'll just get my desktop up, and so you'll have a zip folder, and then you'll double click on that and open it, and then you'll have a normal folder, whether it's on Windows or Mac, it's fine, and then you'll have access to these resources, which are part of a work group that I'm involved in. So essentially what I'm asking you to do is to pick a particular paper, and from that pick something that you're interested in as a topic, taking cues from the subject, and because and then suggesting, okay, I'm going to I don't care if you do a multiple choice, that's fine by me, but I'm going to do question 11A as my presentation. You put it into a PowerPoint, whatever you like. You don't have to present it, but if you want to, you can. And then talk about the concepts that go together for the explanation of that, as well as the solution, obviously. And I've given you the solutions. So what that'll do, and I've also given you the extension 1 version, so I don't care which one you do, extension 1 or extension 2. I'm not going to prescribe for you that you do 2 of each. You might be interested in integrations, you might be interested in any of those techniques. I'm happy for you to do the one that, you know, you've got the solution, so you've got a way of dealing with it. Okay, so I'm quite okay with you having those resources. Are there any questions about what I've suggested there? You okay with that? Yep. And so what you would do is you would copy the question, obviously, you'd have the answer set aside, and you'd work out what it is that you're doing, and through the lens of Calculus 3, you'd make up your document and you would submit it up into the file section of your people group. Okay, that's all I want from you. We need to do that 4 times to satisfy the assessment criteria. You don't have to do it next week. I'll start next week. I've said we can start next week, but I'm not going to prescribe for you when you start. So I wouldn't leave all 4 until after StuVac. But if you could get 1 in now or 2 in now before StuVac, that's probably good. So if you were to aim for, you know, week, let's have a look at the schedule. So StuVac's 26th of September. So we've got 8 full weeks. So if you get 1 or 2 in before StuVac, I reckon that'd be good. So maybe aim for week 5 and week 8 or something like that. You don't want to be spending your StuVac time. You want to have a holiday. Now I'm going to be allowing late submission in the StuVac. So if worse comes to worse and you have a horror school term and you get stuck doing anything for me, it's not the end of the world. Okay, there's time, and I can drag that out longer, and I think I have done that for one of you at least, and that's okay. It's not a blight on you, it's just the practicality that you're teaching, and that's got to be a priority, serving your masters in your school. Okay, are there any questions about that part?
Sorry, Jason, I was just wondering about the microteach. I remember, I think last time I recorded because they're massive files, like when you put an audio, and I think that's what happened. I dropped it into the thing, but it went missing. Like, I think, and that's why I think you didn't. I ended up sending you the slides, so it was all good.
Yeah.
But
so there is a limit, isn't there, to how big you can drop in. I think what is being spoken about there is when you go in, it says, I don't know what happened there. Then go to groups. When you go into your business there and you go to files, yeah, it's got a limit. So that was the practical problem we had, wasn't it? It really should be enough. 50 megabytes should be more than enough.
Yeah.
you know, but I understand that 4 or 5 minute video could easily get up there depending on how it was done, but I'm happy with what you did, Trish. That's fine.
Yeah, I
So-
might just maybe do a Google. I might even just do Google Slides and just share it with you to make it easier. And like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll see. Yeah, that might help.
Well, you can just put it on put the links on a PDF and drop the PDF up here.
Okay, cool. That might be better.
Rather than use the email, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that might be better.
Yeah, that's fine. No, there's no
Great.
no problem. You did beautifully, and you did well in the subject. From what I recall, you both did. So, all right. So if we've got no more questions for that, we might get back to our part here. Now, with the Calculus 3, there's a lot of topics here that be shaking you to the core, maybe. And for those of you that did Calculus 2, you know that I'm very fair in the way I unpack this. So what that's code for is I'm not like you when you teach your students and demand hand this in. Okay, I'm not going to do that. You can do that to your students, and other people in other subjects can do that to you. But for my parts, I want your experience with calculus to be good and helpful, and the reason for that is because you might be enticed to change careers and come and be a mathematician. I'm not supposed to say that, but that's the goal, right? Because you're training, and what I want to do is open the door for you. And if you don't want to change careers, you want to be a teacher, well, is there any reason why you can be a doctor maths teacher? No, nothing's stopping you. Okay, so it's just about how do we know those people who do so well in maths gear up and do so well. Well, one of the things that that I do is I have my own educational research that I deal in, and a couple of you have heard this before, but this MWSC website, I've tested 10,000 students on this website, and they all come in and do this MRS, and there's a practice thing you can have a look at if you want to know what I expect high schoolers to be able to do. So that'd be a nice little thing to do. You can even make your if you want to, you can make your micro teacher on how do we do a question out of the practice MRS. But I'll leave that for you to do. But when you click on this blue link here, it tells you a little bit about where I'm from and what I'm thinking. And essentially what I want to do is inculcate this in my tutorials for the subject. Even though we're doing Calculus 3, there might be something in there that grabs your attention. So my response to the curriculum and the students coming out of the HSC is that if I give them these 6 things, and you'll notice that calculus is not part of the list. If I teach them these 6 things, invariably they will thrive in Maths 1, which is a 4-unit equivalent, 5-unit equivalent, and they will kick on and do well. Okay, so I feel in some way that stage 5 in particular in the school system, year 9 and 10, has somehow been devalued since they turned off the school certificate, which was a cost-saving thing. And all the emphasis has gone into stage 6, and by that stage I feel as though some experience with the curriculum has been detuned to some degree. So these are the things, but I'll leave you to think about that as we go forward. Alright, any thoughts about that? Now, Trish and Cindy have got you at a disadvantage, James, because they've been through my subject before. So now you've had a bit of time to reflect on what was said to you last semester, and I did say the same thing. So do you think I'm a complete idiot, or is there some merit in that?
I wouldn't mind another refresher of the 6 topics again, to be honest.
Okay, let's do that. All right. So we'll fit them in. We'll fit them in where we can to do our parts. Now I've got an example tutorial. We're just going to do a couple of questions just so I can get you in the groove. There's nothing for you to hand in. There's nothing for you to feed back to me. I'll post the homework next week as per the schedule, so I don't want to lose sight of that. And basically what I do is I've got this blank thing I use, and I write. Now before I get to this part and start doing this, I'm just going to quickly go back to those things and just re-enunciate that if I can. So my experience in one of the articles in my profile talks about this in depth. I've had a couple of media interviews over the years, and my experience is that if students come to university and they get the whites of their eyes showing, and you'll often see this happen in a class, and what happens in a class is that, and as controversial as this sounds, an excuse is made. Oh, you're not up to this, mate. You better change class. We'll put you... Now, one of the great sins, and I've said this before, so don't be upset with me. I'm not trying to indoctrinate you into my doctrine. One of the great sins of year 7 and 8, which is stage 4, is streaming. Dun, 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 dun. So I can hear you getting ready to throw dusters at me. And in company of your maths staff, I'd advise you not to say that. Don't go to work tomorrow and say, that guy from UTS, he said we shouldn't be streaming. It will start a massive fight, and I might get hate mail. People are very passionate about their streaming and grading. And I even had one head teacher tell me once that their professional judgment shouldn't be called into question under any circumstances, and they'll decide the cut-off line for grades and who goes into which class. So some people are very, very parochial about their grading and grades and cut-offs and all of that kind of stuff. And it flies in the face of the purpose of the HSC and the statistical grading that goes on with the HSC. Now, of course, you recognise that an ATAR is a rank. An ATAR is not a mark related to curriculum. It's not a summative indicator. It's only summative in the sense that I've left a no out there. Trigonometry. It's only summative in the sense that it's comparing how other students went. Now, one of the hardest things for a teacher to do is to come to terms with this idea that the marks don't matter. Now, why don't the marks matter? Because in our professional practice, it'll be 5 years before we're setting assessments that match the quality of the HSC. So sometimes we're going to give them an easy exam, and that's not helpful. It makes us feel a bit better because they all got 70 or 80, so that's nice. I'll give myself a little pat on the back, as long as we don't go scolding to everyone. And sometimes we'll give them a hard exam where their head teacher will parent, why aren't you teaching them all these topics properly? You know, they might get 60, 62 might be the highest mark or something. You go, oh no, what have I done? But we need to relax about it, because this whole business of marks comes about through your teaching practice, your professional development. And it's not something that you're going to be able to do in your first year. It's something that will take, like I said, 3 or 4 or 5 years. Now, the best staff development you can get, if your principal will allow it, your head teacher will allow it, is HSC marking. So even if you get the opportunity to go and do HSC marking in standard maths, take it, because it'll teach you, it'll open your eyes. You'll go, wow, is this what they actually do? So please be encouraged in that. If you get the opportunity to go HSC marking, take it up. So setting exams that, and so how do we balance that? How do we balance in the HSC, 20,000 kids sit mathematics, and some schools are going to be experienced and switched on and doing HSC style, statistically significant alignment with the HSC. Other schools are going to have newbies and people who are teaching the subject for the first time. So how do we give customers the quality assurance that they're getting a fair deal? Okay, how do we do that? And so in actual fact, despite what the curriculum people in the schools will say, now the curriculum people often hear things that are not much more than urban myths and run with them with all the authority of, you know, the 10 Commandments. But the truth of the matter is, it only matters what the student does on the day. So I've seen students blossom on the morning of the HSC. So I've been worried about a student all year, year and a half or 2 years, and then on the day they come to me and, you know what, I'm feeling really good about this, and they say something like, I don't think there'll be any surprises. And so what they do is they go in on the day and they just pull this mark out, and it's like, how'd you go? You're waiting around like a doddery old fool, worried about what they've done. And it's like, how did you go? They go, oh, no surprises, I think that's okay. And then the mark comes back and it's like, wow, they did really well. So one of the things that can happen is students get very worried about their ranks in school, and I'm not bothered with them knowing personally. You might, your head teacher policy might be different. I don't mind them knowing their ranks. They're ranked over the whole 20,000. So, you know, one standard deviation is going to be 68%. So to beat 68% of the whole lot is going to be, so if the average for the HSC is it's a bell curve like this in a particular subject, okay? And so you'll have your mean, and if it's symmetrical, the middle score will be there or two, and then you'll have your standard deviations. And if you know anything about statistics, you'll know that these are balanced and they're approximate. So the middle section there represents about 68%. This section here represents about what do we think that one is? 95% of the data. You can look these up if you have done statistics. And this one here is the 97.5. So that's your 97.5. That's why we get the max ATAR. Okay. Now, if it turns out that the average for the whole 20,000 students is only 88%, okay, so that's the degree of difficulty of the centrally set exam. That's the reflection of all the teaching that's gone across the 20,000 students and their practice and their preparation. If the average is 88% and a student scores one standard deviation higher than the mean, then what we're going to find is that their mark is quite high. So they might have only pulled in a 90, but their rank is higher than that. Their rank might be like 93 or 94. Okay, so the mark itself is not the be all and end all. It's the ranking, and it depends on the average and how tight this curve is, because you realise these curves can be flatter and vary depending on year to year. So we can go back over that again at another time if you've still got questions about that. But essentially, one way to express that, and this is probably a little bit naughty of me, is that I have my ATAR calculator, and so I can do this for a new one. So we'll do how's that? Is that alright, Sydney? So we can pick a maths subject, and I don't need to do the whole lot in order for it to show. This is a bit of an older one, obviously. And what I'm saying is, if you get 91, okay, and then how does that translate? So the ACAR, now this has only got an aggregate of one subject, so it's pointless, but the point is that that mark of 91, that means that it was better than the average for that year group. Okay, so if I would go in search of the average, then I should be able to find it. So we're getting closer. Say 80. So it jumps down. So the average for that particular example was matching. Okay, but it didn't take many marks for your students to jump up quite a bit. Okay, and that's the shape of the curve, the bell curve, and all of that stuff is something that you can work on. Yeah, if you want to do that. But that's fraught with danger doing what I've just done with students. So please be careful if you're going to do calculator HSC type things, the promises. You'll see the whites of the eyes of your curriculum person, because they won't have a real clue. So please just be careful with that. Alright, so let's get back to where we were. And oh, I don't want that. All right, so learning a little bit about that is not a bad thing for you because it should set you at ease. And one of the things it'll allow you to do is to reassure your students. So you might not be as dramatic as me, but what I used to do when I had a class was they'd say, you're falling behind a bit, the sequence is this, and you know, I want you to get this done. And I say, well, that's all right, we've got the common test coming up, we're graded, and so we're going to do a common test. I say, that's all right, well, it'll be what it'll be. And so my students would get an overall mark that was less than the other class. And see, I told you so, you had to catch up. Some of the stuff they didn't do, I know, but when you look at what they did it fully right. They got 100%. They didn't do the whole 100% of the paper, I know that. But of the questions they did, they got it right. And so I'd repeat that for the next series. And by the time we got to the end of the year, even though I'd been a bit obfuscating and disobedient, the tests that had come into my class average would be better by quite a long way. And I believe that's the answer to the HSC. You can't, in a spiral curriculum, be learning about all these different topics over several stages, and you know, expecting your students to remember what they learned 2 years ago when they're here. So it's better that we do it topic by topic. And so what I do is I encourage any student that I'm teaching to have a vocabulary about their topics, and they need to go through and tick it off. So I understand the topic that's going to turn up in the HSC. Now this is a bit hard to do because you don't get topic information. You certainly don't get topic information with questions. What topic is that from? So there's like another little bit of work to do. It's a little bit of work to figure out which topic is being assessed here from the Department of Education or NISA curriculum. But invariably I think what happens is that in the schools where the students are doing quite well, quite young, they're getting this kind of result. And so they're really kicking on and getting certain topics. And that's what happens. See, because we can't say to a student as we're teaching them in class, come on everybody, you've got to get better, you've got to get 90% of the questions right. I think that's counterproductive. I think it only hurts them and it only hurts you. Okay? But if you can tease out what the topic is and say, all right, who understands this topic? What are we talking about? And there'll be blanks, and some students will start to echo, oh, that's what we do in that particular topic. And then before you know it, topic by topic, by the time they get to the HSC, they're ready to go. But that is not an easy thing to do. Okay, to pull out your questions and your map your topics, it's not an easy thing to do. I find that the teachers that can reflect a paper like the one we just looked at with a topic key, question 15 part A was from that topic, you know, question 14 part E was from that topic, and map that, I believe that that's extremely helpful and worthwhile to do. Okay, but doing that is not straightforward. Okay, it's time consuming and annoying, and you might not want to do it, and if you don't do it, that's okay, but at some point in the future that could be a very good thing for you to do. Alright, so I'll break the recordings into 2-hour blocks so we can get that done. Alright, the next thing we want to look at then, any questions about any of those things that I've mentioned? Because they are a bit controversial, I can see from the looks on your faces. Some of them are a bit, what's he telling us? Is it the truth? But Macquarie University look after the data around the HSC, so you can look into that if you want to. Alright, so why is adding fractions so important? And it's such a mundane, you've got to be kidding me. Really? We're doing calculus 3 and you're talking about adding fractions. I'm going to scream at you in a minute. Well, I know you won't, but so what we'll do is we'll go to our, I've got another subject that I'm involved in this semester, and this is actually our first mathematics subject, and Mary's there. Some of you will know Mary. And from the modules, guess what I've done? I got a know-how module. Mary gave me a know-how module. And so there's know-how, and so I did one of these. I'll open that in the new link, and we'll go in here, and I put down, so I just want you to know this is not just talk. This is in practice. Okay, so what I've done there is I've done the know-how sessions in there, and when we look at this document, we're looking at adding fractions. So actually I might make these available to you guys. And what is it about the language and the adding of fractions that makes it so important, and the forms of the data? So in this particular video, now you should be able to hear
Yeah, away we can go.
Can you hear
Alright.
that?
Alright, so with your subject, I don't know, I think the subject outline, I'm on here as a student.
Okay,
So as a student I see basically what's there.
Right,
I've
cool.
posted something in the,
So these guys are straight out of high school.
in terms of asking
This
a
is the
question.
only help they're going to get that's meaningful.
Alright, so Ian Lynn,
Ruby.
Ian Lynn and Lynn as inverses.
Okay, so
The way that I do this is that coming out of school, it tends to be a lot of confusion.
So I'll wet your whistle for that. I won't leave that all
Y
there.
equals.
And what I do is go on
If that was undo,
and think of the algebra.
the result
inverse.
was you were expecting
This is what I want
see
to do with you guys.
brackets and
Okay, but
indices
you have to prove
disappear.
it. Otherwise, I'll
The
just
result
disappear.
of undo is that you expect those to disappear. Okay, now for some,
And I think further
You
down
use it.
here,
the next most important one is the one we'll do in a little while. Scrub back over it. Now this is where the concept comes. Is we raise the
these are
exponent.
logs.
If I have,
And I think I did a differential equation. Just
So
to
it's
show
proportional
how it worked.
to,
I'll let you watch this
In.
2 minutes, alright?
that's how you would say that in a less sophisticated way. Okay. Now sometimes you can get these where it's 1
I think the
over n,
proportion
it's inversely proportional,
We'll put that
and so on and so forth. Okay. But for our purposes here, what's the significance of what we're doing about this maths idea? Well, if you've done any kind of things, we separate the variables, and I want to show you this now.
So this would be
Because
my
you'll
micro
remember it. When it comes up, you'll remember it and you'll go, oh, I recognise that. And the whole purpose of my know-hows with you is that you learn to recognise business. Okay, expectation and recognition are the key players in your maths education here. So what we're going to do is separate the variables. So I'll have dn over n, so that's bringing that n down, and then I'll put the dt up, cross multiply,
Do you have
so
a question,
dt
Jenny?
by dt by dt, and then so I'll have this. So what this means is I've got 1 over n dn equals k dt. Okay, so I've separated the variables. Okay, so if I integrate these, now I don't care if you know how to do the integration, okay, because the results of the integration we'll go over later. If you don't know how to do that now, that's okay.
So this is me talking to kids
But
that
the
have
1
finished
over
HSC,
n,
right?
if we integrate 1 over n, what's that going to be? Now, this is where I'm going to start to help you guys in a most profound way. Now, some of my colleagues won't love me for doing this, okay, because there's a thing called Mathematica, and Mathematica has a free web page that you can go to called Wolfram Alpha. If you've never seen this before, you can thank me later,
Did you guys go away
Okay.
and use this?
because there ain't nothing you're going to do that can't be checked on here. So that's what I'm advocating. I'm not saying I want you to be calculator people, because we basically should be able to get through the course without a calculator. But what we want to be able to do is verify, don't we? We need like a Jason or a Mary. We need like a Jason or a Mary. Now, what have we got? Okay, so when we integrate 1 over n, we get the log of n. Now that'll be, so what this will tell us is that we get the ln of n plus c, and what happens with this one? We conjure t, so we'll get kt plus c. Now I'm just going to put the c's over. That's one of those frustrating things that happens, you know, when you do that. So I'm just going to call that kt plus big C, Okay.
Now the point's
Now,
coming up.
The
These
problem
2
we're
points.
getting to is here's an example that uses this mathematical idea of undo. So how do I get to the end? How do I get to find out what the population is? Well, it's ln of n. So what have I got to do? I've got to
use E.
I've got to take ln.
That's a
So
student.
this seems to be the
Not
big one
here.
in this course that throws students.
in the
So
record.
here's the ln of n. E to the kt comes up plus this big C. We recognise this as undo. Ta-da! We got it. We got the n. Now what do we do with these guys? You may remember that when we had A2 times A3,
Now this is
we
where
did
I'm
all the
coming
A's
in.
last week, and I somewhat said, oh, that's just A to the 5, and I said the important thing is we're going to have A2 plus 3, and then we're going to go backwards. Okay, so we've got an A,
So
one
that's what
A,
extension
there
students
it
have
is,
to do.
with a plus at the index, and then we've got 2 A's. So the expectation here is that you now generate 2 E's. There it is. You're generating 2 E's. One of them will have the KT, and one of them will have the C. Now the convention is that this remains a constant, and it's usually the constant A. Now I'm not teaching you differential equations, I'm teaching you where ln and indices come in. That's the purpose of this work. Okay, so we've invoked the inverse rule to do undo, and we've used indices that university way. You'd be amazed how many.
Okay, so I'll just hop out of there. That's the flavour. What I'm trying to do, ladies, is introduce James to Jason and what Jason's all about, because he's got to come to terms with me. I'm quite a different fish. I'm happy to make those modules available to you guys for that Maths 1 subject if you want, but you'll have to let me know if you want that, okay? So what it's about is taking the mystery out. Now, it seems odd that I would address a separation of variables equation, which is a three-unit extension 1 type problem at the beginning of the course, but hopefully what it showed you was I was enunciating the algebra in indices and the undo idea of E and learn. Okay, now we get students coming to us who simply don't get it. So we're not the Sydney Uni, we're not UNSW, so we don't get the top students, but those students can do that. What you just observed, they can do that. So that's what this know-how part is all about. Alright, so in a way I kind of feel as though I've given you enough about the know-how tonight, and I want to move on. How do you feel about me doing that? Or do you want me to revisit adding fractions? It's your choice. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to make those resources available to you guys as well, or I can copy that know-how over, or if you think I'll just do it here. So just quick show of hands if you want me to do the adding fractions. Okay, let's do it. Alright, so essentially what we find is that with fractions, most students coming out of primary school will cope with that maybe. And the big issue with that is they don't know their times tables. The only thing I would ask of any primary school student coming out as far as maths is concerned is learning their tables. I couldn't care less about all the other intricacies of problem solving and all the ad nauseum things they stack onto the curriculum, patterns and things. I just couldn't care less. Just learn your tables. Go into year 7 learning your tables. It's enough. They should be practicing their English. They should be reading out loud since about year 3. They should every day be reading the paper or a book 3 times a week minimum out loud to their parents or whoever listen to them, the mirror if need be. So what we find is that in the concept of math, what is multiplication anyway? So 1 times 1 is 1, 4 3 is 12. So most people kind of get that, and even if they get something that's a divide, they kind of learn to pick up what to do in terms of, you know, moving things around. 4 ones are 4 and 3 ones are 3. So multiplication is simply adding in groups. So if you can add, you can do multiplication. And often I'll get students to do adding, particularly ones that aren't very strong. And I say, okay, off you go, how many are there? And they'll tell me. They'll say, okay, there's one on top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And before you know it, they get the hang of it. Might take 6 months, but they'll get there. We seem reluctant to do that, at that part. So once we move past the rule of multiplication and division, we get to addition. And so we look to things like that that are quite simple, and we say, yeah, that's all right, we can do that. You know, there's no big deal there. Whether it's on that side or that side, it's irrelevant. We add the two halves together, we'll get a whole. So that's straight out of primary school. And so but where we start to cognate a more in-depth idea is, well, are the families the same? So yes, they are. And often this step is skipped. Now this is my favourite number because it's another form. It's another form of 1. So the math there, a lot of students that you get in high school would struggle with that. They would struggle with just doing that. And what we expect them to do is more than that, and quite a bit. So we'll give them a different fraction. And we'll say, okay, away you go. And that's confronting. This turns up in integration and differentiation. It turns up ad nauseum. I'm going to demonstrate that tonight. And I'll give myself about 20 minutes on this if you're okay with that. And then we'll have a look at these questions that I've put up otherwise. And being able to do that, they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. So the idea here is step 1 would be we would create a new family, and we would have to write it out this way. People don't want to do this middle step. I'm the long way teacher, and if you're going to get frustrated with me, it'll be because I'm doing the long way. What did I multiply the 2 by? Well, I multiplied it by 3. And what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. Oh, okay. That's 1 in disguise. Why is that important as a concept? Because I'm not changing a half. This is the value in 1. We all laugh at the 1 times table, but the point that's missed is when you multiply 11e70 by 1, you don't change 11e70, it's still 11e70. Okay? The point about multiplying by 1, and this comes up in integration, it comes up in all the advanced maths that we do. Multiplying a complex equation that's going to be integrated by 1, and it's the form of 1. And this gets lost coming out of even primary school in stage 4. So what are we doing here? 3 by 2. Well, yeah, 2. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. And so we've got 3 1s are 3 and 2 1s are 2. Now, through your life experience, it might be self-evident to you that 3 6 is a half and 2 6 is a... To a student learning, that's new. Who knew that was a half? Who knew that was a third? Did we change it? No. Why can we have confidence that we didn't change it? Because we multiplied by 1. Okay, if we multiply something by 1, we don't change it. So in the idea, the concept, we haven't changed this at all. Okay, it's still the same sum. So then we've got the family, and we put it together, and we get the result. Now at university, what we tend to do with problems is we give this one here, and in partial fractions integration, for example, which is a 4-unit topic, we go back to this one. So it's here when we teach them early on. If they're good at fractions, they'll recognise going backwards. You don't have to teach it, but if they didn't learn the concept in the first place well enough, it becomes problematic. So it gets even harder then. What's the difference between advanced maths and extension maths? Extension 1, what's the main difference between advanced maths and extension maths? They seem to be the same skills. What's changes? We start using pronumerals instead of numbers. The concept's the same. So what's the family going to be? Oh, it's a product. You get a student in your senior school to teach you this. They probably can't do it. B over B is 1. It's still 1. We're multiplying 1 on A by 1, so we're not changing 1 on A. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. Sorry, that's a B. What are we multiplying this by? Top and bottom? 1. We're not changing 1 on B. Looks different, but we didn't change it. There it is up there in the air. 1 over 8. Who knew? Did you know? I usually do that with awkward numbers. So I do something like this. So 5. Now I'm being naughty. Did you know that they were the same? I've missed a step, haven't I? Did you know they were the same? By using 1. I haven't changed it because I've multiplied by 1. So now I've got 10 plus 21 over 35. So I've got 31. That's the result. At university we need to go from here back to there for partial fractions. So anything that you do, it's about revaluing your maths, revaluing what it is that you're doing. Alright, so I've just ticked over the hour, so just going to pause here for one moment. I'm just